Hey class, welcome to chapter 11, section 1, and this kicks off the Jacksonian Era, the time period of Andrew Jackson's presidency. He wins the election in 1828 against John Quincy Adams, and we see the rebirth of two political parties. Andrew Jackson representing the Democratic Party, and John Quincy Adams the Republican Party. And Andrew Jackson's a pretty unique guy. First of all, he's the first president not from the original 13 colonies. He's from Tennessee. All previous presidents have been from either Virginia or Massachusetts. He's also the first president to have been born poor. This picture in the top left-hand corner, this is where he was born, in this log cabin. The previous presidents had come from families of great wealth and notoriety. And he was a man who didn't have much, but over the course of his life, he became a soldier, a lawyer, a plantation owner, and a politician, and was able to move into this house right here, which he named the Hermitage. The Hermitage. And during Jackson's presidency, there was great agricultural and industrial growth. The population boomed as many immigrants came to America because they wanted to be a piece of this great new nation. So Andrew Jackson is going to do a lot of things really well during his presidency, but like most presidents, will still have his share of shortfalls. Jackson wins for a few reasons this presidency. One, he is known as the president of the common man. Because he had started out with so little, they saw him as being one of them. The reality was he was one of the richest people in Tennessee. He has over 100 slaves and has incredible wealth, but he started off with very little. And as you recall, he gained his fame, his notoriety, from winning the Battle of New Orleans during the War of 1812. And of course helps to secure Florida later on. He becomes a senator and a pretty important guy. One thing that he institutes is this kind of poor relationship with the Native Americans and kind of American presidents, unfortunately. And at this time in history, the relationship between the government and the native peoples was very strained. Most white men, and Jackson included in that, saw Native Americans as being kind of behind and backwards and uncivilized and needed to be Americanized. While the Indian also viewed the American differently. They viewed the white man as being greedy and selfish and out for their own good. And that's going to cause some real strain in the relationship between Native Americans and the white man during Jackson's time in office. One new concept that Andrew Jackson instilled during his presidency was this idea of the spoils system. The spoils system is the idea of rewarding your faithful followers, supporters, those people who had helped you in your previous government jobs, helped you get elected, and it was rewarding them with government jobs and giving them new positions when you were in the White House. And there were a lot of pros and a lot of cons of this system. Some of the positives were it brought in people into offices that had a similar viewpoint as you did. They saw government the same way as you, so you'd be working on the same page. It was a good thing. Also, he thought by bringing in some new people, it would provide some new vigor or enthusiasm into government. It would also help people see how government worked. So a lot of positives about bringing some fresh new bodies into government positions. But at the same time, there were some negatives. You often replaced people who had jobs, who had been doing an outstanding job in those positions, and you got rid of them. And secondly, it led to a lot of corruption. A lot of people bribing Jackson and other people in his administration for jobs. You see this political cartoon here on the right. It says, "To the victor belongs the spoils." Jackson riding here on this big fat hog, as you see words like plunder and bribery and fraud riding this fat pig as it kept getting wealthier and wealthier. And the money wouldn't necessarily go to Jackson himself, but it would go to like his party. And so it just led to some corruption as well. So there's some real pros and cons to the system. And it's a system that's still in place to some degree today. One of the probably the main disappointing thing during Jackson's presidency is what happens to the Cherokee Indians. If you notice here, they have been given this land right here in America. Notice how it's part of Georgia and part of South Carolina and Kentucky and Tennessee and so forth. Notice how much of it was where he grew up there in Tennessee. The Cherokee had been given this land. They were an independent nation living in America. They had independence. However, after a while, there was some gold found right in here in the Georgia part of Cherokee Nation, and a lot of Georgian white Americans wanted to go in and get that gold, and that caused a conflict as to who was really in charge of that land. Was it the Cherokee people, or was it the state of Georgia? And so one man kind of comes to the forefront in this issue, and it's this man named Samuel Worcester. This case is Worcester versus Georgia. And John Marshall and Supreme Court hear it. Who's right? Georgia, who says it's all our land, it's our property, it's our territory, or is it with the Cherokees and Samuel Worcester? Well, John Marshall says it is absolutely Cherokee land. It's their territory. They have the right to that land. It is theirs. They are an independent, sovereign nation. So Worcester gets released, goes free, and he says that Marshall says that the white man needs to get out of Cherokee territory. Well, Jackson, who we just saw a moment ago, does not have very high regard toward the Cherokee. He says, well, Supreme Court Justice Marshall, you have made the law, now good luck enforcing it. It's not Marshall's job to enforce the ruling. It's Andrew Jackson's. But unfortunately, because Jackson has a negative viewpoint toward the Native people, he's not going to enforce the law. Really a violation of the Constitution at this point. Really a big black dot on Jackson's presidency. And instead, what's going to happen is Jackson's going to pass a law called the Indian Removal Act. The Indian Removal Act. And this act forced all of the Cherokee to leave Georgia. They're going to go, starting here, right, and be forced on this journey up to Oklahoma, where the Indians were all rounded up into Oklahoma. You see some pictures here showing that march. That march has become known as the Trail of Tears. 2,200 miles of routes. Each person would have gone about 1,000 miles on foot, or like you see them walking here, or with their wagons, but it was horrible. Soldiers with guns forcing them to leave their homes. 16,000 Cherokee are removed from their homes, and along the way, along the journey, somewhere between 4,000 and 8,000 of them are going to die on this journey. A horrible thing. And as unfortunately Jackson did not see man as being equal, right? He didn't see us all being created in the image of God, but rather saw that some were better than others and did not view the Cherokee and Native Americans very highly, and so forced them to be removed from their land. And we'll talk about this case a little bit more in class.